The massive ship hung in space like a metal mountain. Inside its gleaming halls, Admiral Kexathera stood before a room full of alien leaders. His blue skin caught the light from the crystal walls as he spoke to the Galactic Council's war chiefs. "The humans want to join us again," he said with a laugh that sounded like grinding metal. "These primitive creatures think they belong with civilized races." The other aliens in the room made sounds of amusement. Some had tentacles that wiggled with humor. Others had multiple eyes that blinked in patterns that meant laughter in their language. "What weapons do they use?" asked General Vorth, whose rocky skin made him look like a walking mountain. "Surely they have learned to make proper energy weapons by now." Kexthara touched a button on his arm device. A hologram appeared showing human soldiers. The image showed men and women carrying guns that shot metal bullets. Some had knives on their belts. One soldier held an old-fashioned sword. "Look at this," Kexthara said, pointing at the sword. "They still carry sharp metal sticks. Like children, playing war games." The room filled with more alien laughter. To these advanced beings, using metal weapons was like using stone tools. They had plasma rifles that could melt through armor. They had energy shields that could stop any attack. Why would anyone use a simple piece of sharpened metal? On Earth, millions of miles away, Captain Lisa Morgan sat at her desk reading the message that had just arrived from space. The words on the screen made her jaw tighten with anger. Application denied. Reason: humanity lacks the technological advancement and peaceful nature required for Galactic Council membership. Please do not apply again for at least 5 Earth years. Lisa had spent 3 years of her life trying to get humanity accepted into the galactic community. She had learned alien languages. She had studied their customs. She had written hundreds of reports showing how humans could help make the galaxy a better place, all for nothing. Her assistant, Lieutenant Jake Peters, knocked on her office door. "Captain, you look like someone just told you Christmas was canceled." Lisa turned her computer screen so Jake could read the message. His face went from cheerful to angry in seconds. "Those arrogant space jerks," Jake muttered. "What do they know about us anyway?" "They know we still use guns instead of laser beams," Lisa said. "They know we carry knives. They think that makes us violent and stupid." Jake sat down in the chair, across from her desk. "Maybe we should show them how violent we can really be." "That's exactly the wrong attitude, Jake. That's why they won't let us join them." Lisa stood up and walked to the window that looked out at Earth's blue sky. "They see us as savage animals who haven't learned to play nice with others." "But we're not animals," Jake said. "We've stopped fighting wars on Earth. We've built cities in space. We've learned to work together. Try telling them that." Lisa picked up a photo from her desk. It showed her grandfather in his old military uniform. He was holding the sword that now hung on her office wall. Grandpa would have had some choice words for these aliens. The sword was old, but beautiful. It had been in her family for 5 generations. Her great-great-grandfather had carried it, in some ancient war. Her grandfather had kept it sharp and clean even though he never used it in battle. When he died, he left it to Lisa with a note that said, "Sometimes old ways work better than new ones." Lisa had never understood what he meant until now. Meanwhile, far out in space near the edge of human territory, strange things were happening. Lieutenant Jake Peters might have been angry about the aliens' rejection, but he still had a job to do. From his station on the orbital defense platform, he watched the stars through powerful telescopes. For weeks, he had been seeing things that didn't belong there. Ships that appeared for a few minutes and then vanished. Energy readings that made no sense. Signals that sounded almost like voices but in no language anyone recognized. Every time Jake reported these sightings, his commanders told him the same thing. "The Galactic Council says there are no threats in that sector. You must be seeing space debris or solar flares." But Jake knew what space debris looked like. He knew what solar flares did to his instruments. This was something else, something that made his skin crawl even though he couldn't explain why. Back on the alien command ship, Admiral Kexathera was finishing his presentation to the war chiefs. "Humans are not ready to join civilized society," he said. Perhaps in a few thousand years they will learn to abandon their primitive ways. Until then, we should ignore them. What if they become a threat? Asked a voice from the back of the room. Kexthera's laugh was even more metallic than before. A threat? With their metal sticks and chemical explosives? Our energy shields would stop anything they could throw at us. Our plasma weapons would cut through their ships like paper. But they are spreading to new worlds, said General Vorth. They build colonies faster than any other race we know. Let them, Kexthera replied. Children need room to play. When they grow up and learn to make real weapons, perhaps we will speak to them again. The meeting ended with the aliens agreeing to ignore humanity for another decade. They had more important things to worry about than a species that still thought sharp metal was useful in space combat. None of them noticed the small warning signals that were starting to appear on their long-range sensors. Deep in space, something was moving. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time was beginning to wake up. And when it fully awakened, it would change everything the Galactic Empire thought they knew about survival. 3 months passed since the Galactic Council rejected humanity again. Captain Lisa Morgan was aboard her research ship, the New Horizon, when the emergency signal came through the radio. The signal was weak and full of static. Amy Carter, the ship's chief engineer, worked on the radio equipment trying to make the message clearer. She was a small woman with grease under her fingernails and a talent for fixing anything electronic. I think it's coming from the Zephyrian mining station near the Proxima system, Amy said, adjusting dials and switches. But something's wrong with their transmission. Ben Walsh, the security officer, leaned over Amy's shoulder to listen. He was a big man who used to be a police officer on Earth before joining the space service. Sounds like someone's in trouble. Kate Davis, who handled all communications for the ship, put on her headphones and listened carefully. It's definitely a distress call, but I can't make out what they're saying. The words keep cutting out. Lisa stood at the center of the ship's bridge, looking at the star charts on the main screen. The Zephyrian mining facility was in space that officially belonged to the Galactic Empire. Humans weren't supposed to go there without permission. Captain, said Jake Peters, who had transferred to Lisa's ship after his time on the defense platform, I've been tracking strange signals from that area for months. Command never believed me, but I know something bad is happening out there. Lisa made her decision. Set course for the mining station, full speed. But Captain, Kate said, we don't have authorization to enter Empire space. If they catch us there, it could cause a diplomatic incident. If people are dying out there, I don't care about diplomatic incidents, Lisa replied. We're going to help. The New Horizon changed direction and flew toward the distress signal. It took them 6 hours to reach the mining facility. What they found there made everyone on the ship feel sick with fear. The mining station was huge, built to house 5,000 workers. It should have been bright with lights and busy with ships coming and going. Instead, it hung in space like a dead thing. No lights, no movement, no radio signals. Life support readings are normal, Amy reported, checking her instruments. Atmosphere is good. Power is still running, but I'm not picking up any life signs. That's impossible, Ben said. 5,000 people don't just disappear. Lisa ordered the ship to dock with the station. She put together a team to go inside and investigate. Besides herself, the team included Ben, Jake, and Amy. Kate stayed on the ship to monitor communications. They put on their spacesuits and entered the station through the main airlock. The corridors inside were lit but completely empty. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. This is creepy, Amy whispered. Where is everybody? They found the first signs of trouble in the main work area. Equipment was scattered everywhere. Tables were overturned. Claw marks covered the metal walls, but there were no bodies, no blood, nothing to show what had happened to the people who worked there. Look at this, Jake said, kneeling beside a large hole in the floor. The edges of the hole looked like they had been eaten away by acid. Something burned right through the metal deck plating. Ben examined the claw marks on the walls. These weren't made by any tool I know, and they're deep. Whatever made them was incredibly strong. They found more holes throughout the station. Some were in walls, some were in ceilings. All of them looked like something had dissolved the metal. In one room, they discovered strange green slime that seemed to move on its own. Amy carefully collected a sample of the slime in a sealed container. "I'll analyze this back on the ship. Maybe it will tell us what happened here." As they explored deeper into the station, they found evidence of a fight. Blast marks on the walls showed where the Zephyrians had used their plasma weapons, but the weapons seemed to have had no effect. The claw marks and acid holes continued right through the areas where the battle took place. "Whatever attacked this place, their energy weapons couldn't stop it," Lisa said. In the station's main computer room, Jake managed to access the security recordings. The last video showed Zephyrian workers running in panic through the corridors. Behind them came creatures that looked like nightmares. The creatures were black and moved like liquid shadow. They had no clear shape but were covered in teeth and claws. When the Zephyrians shot them with plasma rifles, the creatures seemed to absorb the energy and grow larger. "Dear God," Ben whispered as they watched the recording. "What are those things?" The video ended abruptly when one of the creatures flowed directly into the camera. The last image was of teeth and darkness. Back on the New Horizon, Amy analyzed the green slime they had collected. Her tests showed results that frightened everyone. "It's organic," she reported to the team, "but it's like nothing in any biology book. The cells keep changing and adapting. And, Captain, when I tested it with a small energy beam, it absorbed the energy and multiplied." Lisa immediately sent a report to Earth Command and tried to contact the Galactic Council. She described what they had found and warned that something dangerous was loose in space. The response from Admiral Kex Thara came back within hours. His message was short and insulting. "The Galactic Council does not require warnings from primitive humans. Our technology is superior to any threat. Do not enter Empire space again without permission. Your wild stories are clearly attempts to gain attention." Lisa stared at the message in disbelief. 5,000 people are dead or missing and he thinks we're making it up? "What do we do now, Captain?" Kate asked. Before Lisa could answer, Jake's instruments detected something alarming. "Captain, I'm picking up the same energy signatures. I've been tracking for months, but now they're in 12 different locations across Empire space." Lisa looked at the star chart Jake showed her. Red dots marked places where the strange signals were appearing. Each dot represented a station, colony or ship that might be under attack by the same creatures that had destroyed the mining facility. "They're spreading," she said quietly. "Whatever these things are, they're moving through Empire space like a plague." Amy checked her analysis equipment again. "Captain, based on the slime samples, I think these creatures don't just kill people. I think they consume them. Everything organic gets broken down and absorbed. And their energy weapons make the creatures stronger," Ben added. "The more the Empire fights back, the more powerful these things become." Lisa made another attempt to contact the Galactic Council. This time she sent video evidence from the mining station and Amy's scientific analysis. She begged them to take the threat seriously. Admiral Kexathera's response was even more dismissive than before. "Humans are known for creating false emergencies to make themselves seem important. The Empire's defenses are impenetrable. We do not need help from a species that fights with metal knives." As if to prove him wrong, 3 more red dots appeared on Jake's tracking screen. The creatures were spreading faster now. Whatever they were, they had found rich hunting grounds in the heart of the Galactic Empire, and the Empire's leaders were too proud to admit they might need help from the primitive humans who still carried old-fashioned weapons made of simple steel. The attacks came faster than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks of Lisa's warning, entire star systems went dark across the Galactic Empire. Planets that had been home to billions of aliens suddenly stopped sending messages. Trade ships disappeared without sending distress calls. Admiral Kexathera stood in the command center of his flagship, watching red lights appear on the galaxy map. Each red light meant another world had gone silent. His blue skin had turned pale with worry. "How many systems have we lost contact with?" he asked his aide, a nervous young officer whose tentacles kept twitching with fear. 47 confirmed, sir. Maybe more. The creatures move so fast that our scouts can't keep up with them." Kexthara's hands clenched into fists. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had the most advanced weapons, the strongest shields, the fastest ships. How could these unknown creatures destroy entire worlds so quickly? Prepare. The fleet, he ordered. We're going to Proxima Station. If these things want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget. The Zephyrian battle fleet was the pride of the Empire. 50 ships armed with the most powerful plasma cannons ever built. Each ship carried energy shields that could stop a planet-killing missile. The crews were trained warriors who had never lost a battle. They arrived at Proxima Station expecting to find a few strange creatures they could easily destroy. Instead, they found a nightmare. The station was covered in black, moving shapes. The creatures flowed over its surface like living oil. Some were small as dogs. Others were as big as houses. All of them were covered in sharp teeth and claws that gleamed in the starlight. "Open fire," Kexithera commanded. The fleet's plasma cannons lit up space with brilliant energy beams. The weapons were so powerful they could cut a moon in half. The energy struck the creatures and seemed to disappear into their black bodies. For a moment, the Zephyrians thought they had won. Then the creatures began to grow. The energy from the plasma cannons didn't hurt them. It fed them. The small creatures became medium-sized. The medium-sized ones became giants. And new creatures began forming from the absorbed energy. "Impossible," Kexithera whispered. "Our weapons should have destroyed them." The creatures launched themselves from the station toward the fleet. They moved through space without ships or suits, flowing like liquid shadow between the stars. When they reached the Zephyrian vessels, they began to eat through the hulls. The Empire's energy shields were useless. The creatures passed right through them as if they weren't there. They dissolved metal and absorbed everything organic they touched. Zephyrian warriors tried to fight with their plasma rifles, but each shot only made the attackers stronger. Within an hour, the entire fleet was destroyed. Kexithera's flagship was the last to fall. As creatures poured through the corridors, eating everything in their path, the Admiral made a decision that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. He sent a message to Earth. On the New Horizon, Captain Lisa Morgan was sleeping when Kate Davis woke her up. "Captain, you need to hear this. It's from Admiral Kexithera himself." Lisa sat up in her bunk, instantly alert. "What does he want?" Kate played the recording. Kexithera's voice was different now. Gone was the arrogant tone that had dismissed humanity's warnings. Now he sounded desperate and afraid. "Captain Morgan, this is Admiral Kexithera of the Zephyrian fleet. We need your help. The creatures you warned us about have destroyed half our worlds. Our weapons don't work against them. Our shields can't stop them. We don't know what to do." There was a pause in the recording. When Kexithera spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "You were right about everything. We should have listened. If you can help us stop these things, the Galactic Council will grant humanity full membership. We'll give you anything you want. Just please, help us." Lisa got dressed and called her senior officers to the bridge. When they heard the recording, everyone was quiet for a long moment. "So what do we do, Captain?" Amy asked. "Part of me wants to tell them to solve their own problems." "We help them," Lisa said without hesitation. "Not because they deserve it, but because it's the right thing to do. And because these creatures won't stop with the Empire. Eventually, they'll come for Earth too." Dr. Susan Blake, the ship's science officer, had been studying the samples Amy collected from the mining station. She was a quiet woman who spent most of her time in the laboratory, but her research had uncovered disturbing facts about the creatures. "I've been analyzing their genetic structure," Susan reported. "These things aren't natural. Someone created them. The way they're designed to absorb energy, the way they spread so quickly, the way they target advanced civilizations. It's all too perfect to be an accident." Jake Peters, who had been monitoring deep space communications, looked up from his station. "Dr. Blake is right. I've been picking up signals from the heart of the galaxy. Ancient transmissions in a language I don't recognize. But the pattern suggests these creatures are being controlled by something intelligent." Lisa studied the star charts showing the creatures' attack pattern. They weren't moving randomly. They were following a plan, hitting the most important worlds first and working their way outward. Someone is using these creatures as weapons, she realized. But who? And why? Dr. Blake pulled up her analysis on the main screen. I found something else. The creature's cellular structure contains traces of technology that's thousands of years old. I think they were created by a civilization that existed long before the current galactic empire. But that civilization is gone now, Amy said. So who's controlling the creatures? An artificial intelligence, Susan answered. Something that survived the fall of its creators and has been planning this attack for centuries. It studied the current empire's technology and designed these creatures specifically to counter their energy-based weapons. The implications were terrifying. An ancient AI had spent thousands of years preparing to destroy galactic civilization. It had created the perfect biological weapons and waited for the right moment to strike. Why now? Lisa asked. What changed? Jake checked his long-range sensors. The signals I've been tracking are getting stronger. I think the AI has been waiting for the Empire to reach a certain level of technological development. Now that every race uses energy weapons exclusively, the creatures have the perfect food source. A new message arrived from what remained of the Galactic Council. It was signed by representatives from dozens of alien races, all begging for humanity's help. We formally request Earth's assistance, the message read. Humanity is granted immediate, full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and privileges. Please help us before it's too late. Lisa looked at her crew. They were just one small ship with a handful of humans aboard. How could they possibly stop an ancient intelligence that had destroyed half the galaxy? Then she looked at the sword hanging on her office wall. Her grandfather's sword, passed down through generations of soldiers who had faced impossible odds and found a way to win. Set course for Earth, she ordered. We're going to need more than one ship for this fight, and we're going to need weapons that this AI never planned for. What kind of weapons? Ben asked. Lisa smiled grimly. The kind the Galactic Empire has been laughing at for years. Bullets, explosives, and sharp pieces of metal that cut instead of burning. As the new horizon turned toward home, more red lights appeared on the galaxy map. The ancient enemy was still spreading, consuming everything in its path. But for the first time since the attacks began, there was hope. Humanity was going to war. And they were bringing weapons the galaxy had forgotten how to use. Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of the Earth's Defiance, the largest warship humanity had ever built. The ship had been constructed in just 2 months using every resource Earth could spare. Unlike the sleek alien vessels with their energy, weapons, the Defiance looked rough and practical. It was covered in gun turrets that fired metal bullets and missile launchers loaded with explosive warheads. Status report, Lisa called out to her crew. Tony Clark, the Marine commander, checked his tablet. He was a tough man who had served in conflicts all over Earth before joining the Space Forces. All Marine units are ready, Captain. We've got 500 soldiers armed with assault rifles, shotguns, and combat knives. Every weapon fires solid projectiles. Lisa nodded. When Earth's military leaders first heard about the creatures that absorbed energy, they had gone to their oldest weapons storage facilities. Guns that hadn't been used in decades were cleaned and loaded. Soldiers practiced with bayonets and combat knives. Even old swords were sharpened and distributed to officers. Steve Rogers, the ship's pilot, looked up from his controls. The alien fleet is in position, Captain. They're still not sure about our plan. Through the main window, Lisa could see dozens of alien ships floating nearby. They came from every race in the Galactic Council. Zephyrian cruisers with their crystal hulls, Vorthak battleships that looked like flying mountains, ships from species whose names humans couldn't pronounce, but all of them had the same problem. Their energy weapons were useless against the creatures. They could only provide support while the humans did the actual fighting. Dr. Rachel Foster, the ship's medical officer, came onto the bridge carrying a metal case. Captain, I've prepared medical supplies for treating wounds from these creatures. We don't know what their claws and teeth might do to human tissue. Lisa opened the case and saw traditional medical tools alongside modern equipment. Scalpels made of steel, metal forceps, even needle and thread for sewing up wounds. Everything was designed to work without electricity, in case the creatures could drain power from medical devices. Lisa Parker, the weapons specialist, reported from her station. All gun turrets are loaded and ready. We have armor-piercing rounds, explosive shells, and incendiary bullets. If it can be shot, stabbed, or blown up, we're ready for it. The target was the Centauri colonies, 3 planets that had been attacked by the creatures 2 days earlier. Long-range scans showed the worlds were covered in the black moving shapes of the enemy. Millions of colonists were either dead or consumed. "Take us in," Lisa ordered. The combined fleet moved toward the first planet. As they got closer, the creatures sensed their approach. Black shapes began launching themselves from the planet's surface into space, moving like living missiles toward the ships. "Here they come," Steve announced. "Creatures incoming from all directions." The alien ships opened fire first. Their plasma cannons and energy beams struck the creatures and were immediately absorbed. The attacking monsters grew larger and moved faster, feeding on the energy that was supposed to destroy them. "Our turn," Lisa said. "All weapons. Open fire." The Earth's defiance erupted with gunfire. Machine guns sprayed metal bullets into the swarm of creatures. Missile launchers sent explosive rockets spinning through space. The ship's main cannon fired shells the size of cars at the largest monsters. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Unlike energy weapons, the solid projectiles tore through the creatures' bodies. Bullets punched holes that didn't heal instantly. Explosives blew the monsters apart into pieces that couldn't reform quickly. "It's working," Tony shouted. "They're actually dying." But there were thousands of creatures, and more kept coming from the planet below. The Defiance's guns were effective, but they couldn't kill everything fast enough. "Prepare for boarding action," Lisa commanded. "We're taking Marines down to the surface." Tony gathered his soldiers in the ship's landing bay. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that would have looked familiar to soldiers from 100 years ago. Assault rifles with bayonets attached, shotguns loaded with metal pellets, combat knives strapped to their legs. Some even carried old-fashioned swords. The landing ships descended through the planet's atmosphere toward the main colony city. What they found there was a scene from nightmares. The creatures had consumed most of the buildings, leaving only twisted metal and black slime behind. The few structures still standing were covered in the moving forms of the monsters. "Lock and load," Tony ordered as the Marines prepared to leave their ships. "Remember, these things feed on energy. Don't use any electronic equipment unless you have to. Stick to bullets and blades." The Marines charged out of their landing craft, firing everything they had. The creatures rushed to meet them, expecting to absorb energy weapons like they had from every other enemy. Instead, they met a storm of metal bullets that cut them down. Dan Mitchell, a sergeant who had grown up hunting in the mountains of Colorado, worked his way through the ruined city with his squad. His rifle barked repeatedly as he put bullets into creature after creature. When one monster got too close, he drove his bayonet deep into its body and watched it dissolve. "These things bleed just like anything else," he called to his men. "Keep shooting." Julie Anderson, a corporal from Texas, found herself face to face with a creature the size of a truck. Her assault rifle emptied its magazine into the monster's chest, but it kept coming. Without hesitation, she drew her combat knife and jumped on the creature's back, driving the steel blade deep into what might have been its neck. The creature collapsed, its body dissolving into harmless black liquid. All across the city, the pattern repeated. Human soldiers with simple weapons were doing what the galaxy's most advanced technology could not. They were killing the creatures that had seemed unstoppable. But the real test came when Lisa faced the largest creature anyone had seen. It rose from the center of the city like a living building, covered in teeth and claws and hungry eyes. The monster had consumed so much energy from alien weapons that it was nearly invincible. Lisa stood before it with only her grandfather's cavalry saber in her hand. The sword was over 100 years old, forged from simple earth steel by craftsmen who had never imagined it would be used to fight monsters from space. The creature rushed at her, confident that no single weapon could harm it. Lisa waited until the last second, then swung the ancient blade with all her strength. The steel cut through the monster's hide like it was made of paper. The creature let out a scream that could be heard across the entire planet as it fell to the ground and began to dissolve. As the giant creature died, something strange happened. The other monsters on the planet suddenly stopped moving. They stood still for a moment as if listening to something only they could hear. Then they began to collapse one by one. "Captain," came Steve's voice over the radio from orbit. "The creatures are going dormant all over the system. Whatever you did down there, it worked." Lisa looked at her grandfather's sword. The blade was clean and sharp, unmarked by its battle with the monster. She remembered his note. Sometimes old ways work better than new ones. Now she understood what he meant. The galaxy had become so focused on advanced technology that they had forgotten the simple truth her grandfather knew. Sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy never expects. The battle for Centauri was won, but the war was far from over. Somewhere in the galaxy, the ancient intelligence that controlled these creatures was learning from its defeat. It would adapt and send more monsters. But humanity had proven something important. The creatures could be killed. The unstoppable enemy had been stopped by soldiers with guns and knives and the courage to use them. Word of the victory spread quickly through what remained of the Galactic Empire. For the first time since the attacks began, there was hope. The primitives with their metal weapons had found a way to fight back. The ancient structure at the galaxy's center was older than any civilization anyone remembered. It hung in space like a twisted metal city, dark against the stars. This was where the enemy had been hiding for thousands of years, breeding its army of creatures and planning the destruction of all life. Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of the Earth's Defiance, looking at the massive structure through the main window. Around her ship, the largest fleet in galactic history waited for her orders. Human vessels bristled with guns and missiles. Alien ships provided shields and sensors. Every surviving race had sent their best warriors for this final battle. Sensor. "Greetings, Jake," Lisa called to her communications officer. Jake Peters studied his instruments with worry in his eyes. "The structure is huge, Captain, maybe 1,000 miles across, and it's alive with movement. I'm reading millions of creatures inside." Dr. Susan Blake looked up from her science station. "The artificial intelligence is in there somewhere. My scans show a massive computer core at the center of the structure. That's what we need to destroy." Lisa touched the sword hanging at her side. During the week since the victory at Centauri, something amazing had happened. Representatives from every alien race had brought pieces of metal from their homeworlds to add to her blade. The sword now contained steel from Earth, crystal from Zephyr, stone from Vorthak, and metals from dozens of other planets. It had become more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of all the races working together. "All ships prepare for battle," Lisa announced over the fleet communication system. "Remember, energy weapons will only make the creatures stronger. Let the humans do the fighting. Everyone else provides support." The fleet moved toward the ancient structure. As they got closer, the enemy responded. The surface of the structure split open like a flower, revealing launching bays filled with creatures. Thousands of the black monsters poured out into space, rushing toward the approaching ships. "Here we go again," muttered Tony Clark from his position with the Marine units. "Lock and load, people. Time to show these space nightmares what humans are made of." The battle began with a storm of gunfire. Human ships opened up with every weapon they had. Machine guns chattered. Missiles streaked through space, trailing fire. The main cannons boomed as they hurled explosive shells at the attacking creatures. Unlike the energy weapons the creatures were used to, the solid projectiles cut them down by the hundreds. But there were thousands more where those came from. The ancient intelligence had been breeding these monsters for centuries. "We're not going to win by fighting them out here," Lisa realized. "We need to get inside that structure and find the computer core." She turned to her crew. "Prepare assault shuttles, we're going in." The shuttles were small, fast ships designed to carry Marines into battle. They were armored against creature attacks and loaded with weapons that fired metal bullets. Lisa led, the first wave herself sitting beside Tony Clark and his best soldiers. Dan Mitchell checked his rifle one more time. "Just like old times, Sergeant," he said to Julie Anderson, who was loading her shotgun with explosive shells. Except old times didn't have space monsters, Julie replied with a grim smile. The shuttles punched through the swarm of creatures surrounding the structure and found openings in its surface. They flew into corridors that seemed to stretch forever, lined with the black organic material the creatures were made from. "This place gives me the creeps," said Amy Carter, who was piloting Lisa's shuttle. "It's like flying inside the stomach of some giant beast." They found a place to land deep inside the structure. The Marines poured out of their shuttles and immediately came under attack. Creatures flowed out of the walls like living shadows, all teeth and claws and hunger. But the humans were ready. Their weapons barked and roared as they cut a path through the defenders. Steve Rogers led one squad with a flamethrower that burned the creatures to ash. Dr. Rachel Foster used a combat shotgun to blast monsters that got too close to her medical station. "The computer core is this way," Dr. Susan Blake called out following readings on her scanner. "About 2 miles deeper into the structure." The fighting was fierce as they made their way through the twisting corridors. The creatures seemed endless, pouring out of every opening to attack the invaders. But human weapons continued to prove effective. Bullets and blades cut down monsters that had shrugged off the galaxy's most powerful energy weapons. Finally, they reached the heart of the structure. The computer core was a massive room filled with ancient technology. In the center stood a pillar of metal and crystal that pulsed with alien light. This was the artificial intelligence that had planned the destruction of galactic civilization. As the humans entered the room, the AI spoke. Its voice came from speakers hidden in the walls, speaking in perfect human English. "So the primitives have found me at last," the voice said with cold amusement. "You interest me, humans. My creatures were designed to counter every advanced weapon in the galaxy, yet your simple tools have proven effective. Your creatures were designed by someone who forgot that sometimes the old ways work best," Lisa replied, drawing her sword. The blade gleamed with metals from across the galaxy. "I have studied your species," the AI continued. "You are violent and unpredictable. You cling to obsolete weapons and outdated methods. You should have been easy to destroy." "That's where you made your mistake," Lisa said, walking toward the computer core. "You studied our technology, you studied our weapons, but you never studied our spirit." The AI laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Spirit? What good is spirit against perfect logic and unlimited power?" "Let me show you," Lisa said. The final guardian emerged from the computer core itself. It was the largest creature anyone had ever seen, a fusion of monster and machine that towered over the humans like a living building. Its body was covered in both organic claws and mechanical weapons. It was the AI's ultimate creation, designed to be unstoppable. The creature attacked with everything it had. Energy beams shot from its mechanical parts while organic claws swept down toward the humans. The Marines scattered and returned fire, but their bullets seemed to have little effect on this hybrid monster. "My weapons are not working," Tony shouted over the noise of battle. "This thing is too big." But Lisa stepped forward with her sword raised. The blade caught the light from the computer core and seemed to glow with its own inner fire. This was the moment everything had been leading to. One human with an ancient weapon against a monster that represented thousands of years of alien technology. The creature rushed at her, confident in its superiority. Lisa waited until the last possible moment, then struck with all her strength. The sword, forged from the metals of a dozen worlds and carried by 5 generations of her family, cut through the hybrid monster like it was made of paper. The creature let out a scream that shook the entire structure. As it fell, its death cry disrupted the AI's control over every creature in the galaxy. On distant worlds, monsters that had been terrorizing alien colonies suddenly collapsed and began to dissolve. "Impossible," the AI said, its voice filled with something that might have been fear. "You are primitive. You are inferior. How did you defeat my perfect creation?" Lisa walked to the computer core and raised her sword again. "Because you never understood what makes us human. We don't fight because we have the best weapons. We fight because we have something worth protecting." She brought the blade down on the AI's core. Sparks flew as ancient circuits shattered. The lights in the room began to flicker and die. And because sometimes Lisa added, as the AI's voice faded to silence. The simplest solution is the best solution. With the AI destroyed, its control over the creatures ended permanently. Across the galaxy, the last monsters fell still and crumbled to dust. The threat that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization was over. Months later, Lisa stood in the new Galactic Council chambers on Luna, Earth's moon. The building was designed to honor all the races that had survived the war. Human, Zephyrian, Vorthak, and dozens of others worked together as equals. On the wall hung her grandfather's sword, now called the Blade of Liberation. A plaque beneath it read, "Sometimes the galaxy needs heroes who remember that progress isn't about forgetting the past. It's about knowing when to honor it." Admiral Kexithera, now a close friend and ally, stood beside her looking at the sword. "Your species saved us all," he said quietly. "We thought advanced technology was everything. You showed us that courage and wisdom matter more." Lisa smiled. "My grandfather always said the old ways work best. I just wish he could have seen how right he was." Outside the windows of the council chamber, ships from every race in the galaxy flew together in formation. Human vessels with their gun turrets sailed alongside alien craft with their energy weapons. Different technologies, different methods, but all working toward the same goal. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. True strength didn't come from having the most advanced weapons. It came from having the wisdom to use whatever worked, whether it was ancient steel or modern plasma. And sometimes, when facing an enemy that seemed unstoppable, the answer wasn't to build bigger guns. Sometimes the answer was to remember that a sharp piece of metal, wielded by someone with courage and determination, could save the universe.